So here we are again with another General Hospital twist that honestly nobody saw coming, or maybe we all saw it coming, depending on how closely you've been paying attention to the absolutely wild trajectory of Willow Corinthos Natide's character arc lately. Because let me tell you this, woman has gone from sweet cancer patient who just wanted to do the right thing to someone who is literally framing her own husband for attempted murder. And I cannot stress enough how bonkers this entire situation has become when you really sit down and think about it for more than 2 minutes. Willow shot Drew. She actually pulled the trigger and shot Drew Kane at his own house, and now she's gonna frame Michael for it because she wants her kids back. Which, I mean, I get it. As a parent, you'd do anything for your children, but attempted murder and then framing your husband seems like maybe a few steps too far, even for Port Charles standards, where people literally come back from the dead on a regular basis and nobody bats an eye anymore. The whole thing started because Willow and Drew had this affair, right? This absolutely catastrophic affair that blew up multiple families and destroyed so many relationships. And yet somehow Willow decided that the best course of action after all of that was to shoot the man she had the affair with. Like, what was the logic there? What was going through her head in that moment when she picked up that gun and aimed it at Drew? Because I have so many questions about her mental state at that particular moment in time. And now she's decided that Michael should take the fall for her crime, which is just layers upon layers of betrayal, because this is the man who stood by her through cancer, through her bone marrow transplant drama, through all of the Nelle nonsense, and the whole Nina being her mother revelation. And this is how she repays him, by framing him for a crime that could send him to prison for years, maybe decades, depending on how the prosecution decides to handle it. But here's where it gets really interesting, and by interesting I mean absolutely messy in the best possible way for those of us watching from Trina Robinson and Kai Taylor know the truth, or at least they know enough of the truth to completely destroy Willow's elaborate frame-up scheme, if they decide to come forward with what they witnessed that night at Drew's house. They heard Willow's ringtone, the specific ringtone she has set for Wiley, her son, which is such a specific detail that, the writers put it in there for a reason, because nothing in soap opera world is ever just a coincidence. Everything means something even when it seems like it. Doesn't Trina being involved in this makes it even more complicated, because she's not just some random witness, she's Jocelyn's best friend practically. Her sister at this point, after everything they've been through together. And Jocelyn is Michael's sister, so you can see how this creates this really tangled web of loyalty and obligation and moral responsibility. What happens when you know your best friend's brother is about to go down for a crime he didn't commit? Do you stay silent to protect yourself, or do you come forward knowing it could blow up your entire life? Trina is not the kind of person who would let an innocent man go to prison. We've seen her character development over the years, and she has this really strong moral compass that honestly puts most of the adults in Port Charles to shame. But Kai is a different story entirely, because we don't know him as well, and he might have different priorities, different concerns about what coming forward could mean for his own future. The spoilers suggest that Kai would actually prefer to go to the cops alone, but Trina is adamant they're in this together, which tells you everything you need to know about Trina's character. She's not going to let him take the fall by himself. She's not going to let him be the only one who faces whatever consequences might come from revealing what they know. And then there's this whole key situation with Martin Gray and Tracy Quartermain, which honestly I need to unpack because it's such a Tracy move to be somehow involved in evidence that could potentially incriminate someone. Martin took a key from Tracy, and now Willow has that key, and she's planning to plant it as evidence to make it look like Michael used it to get into Drew's house on the night of the shooting. The ADA, Justine Turner, wants Detective Nathan West to find something solid against Michael, because right now the case is all circumstantial. They need hard evidence, something concrete that ties Michael to the crime scene, and this key could be exactly what they're looking for. But imagine if you're Michael sitting in an interrogation room trying to figure out how a key you've never seen before in your entire life somehow ended up being connected to you and to Drew's house, and you didn't do it, but you can't prove you didn't do it because someone is actively working to make you look guilty. The irony here is almost too much to handle because Willow's the one who actually committed the crime, but she's going to such elaborate lengths to pin it on someone else that she might actually succeed if it weren't for these two kids who happened to be in the wrong place at the right time, or maybe the right place at the right time, depending on your perspective. Cell phone records would back up Trina and Kai's testimony about hearing that ringtone, which means there would be actual technical evidence, not just their word, against Willow's. And in today's legal system, cell phone records are pretty much the gold standard of proof. You can't really argue with ping data and call logs and all of that digital footprint stuff that leaves a trail everywhere we go. So, if Trina and Kai do come forward, and if the police actually take them seriously and investigate properly, then Willow's entire scheme falls apart like a house of cards in a windstorm. Now, here's where the double jeopardy thing comes into play, and this is actually really important from a legal standpoint, even though most viewers probably aren't thinking about constitutional law when they're watching their afternoon soaps. Willow already went to trial, presumably, or at least she was prosecuted for this crime, and she can't be tried again for the same offense. That's the whole point of double jeopardy protection under the Fifth Amendment. You can't just keep trying someone over and over until you get the verdict you want. So even if it comes out that Willow is the real shooter, even if Trina and Kai testify and the cell phone records prove she was there, and everyone knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that she did it, there's nothing the criminal justice system can do to her anymore. That ship has sailed. She's legally protected from any further prosecution for Drew's shooting. Can you imagine being Michael in that situation, finding out that your wife not only shot someone and framed you for it, but also she's legally untouchable? She can't be punished for what she did to you or to Drew because the system already gave her a pass. But, and this is a big but, probably the biggest but in this entire messy situation, just because Willow can't face criminal charges doesn't mean there aren't other consequences waiting for her. The custody battle for her children, which is apparently the whole reason she's doing any of this in the first place, is a family court matter, not a criminal court matter, and family court judges tend to take a very dim view of parents who shoot people and then frame other people for those shootings. If Nina's lawyers get wind of this, if they find out that Willow tried to set up Michael, that she planted evidence that she was willing to send an innocent man to prison just to protect herself, then her chances of getting custody of Wiley and Amelia drop from slim to basically non-existent. Because what judge is going to award children to someone who has demonstrated such a profound lack of judgment and moral character? Let's think about what Willow's thought process must have been when she came up with this plan, because I'm trying to understand the logic here. I'm really trying. She shot Drew for reasons that we can speculate about, but we don't know for certain. Maybe it was in self-defense, maybe it was a moment of panic. Maybe there was some other confrontation that went sideways. Then, instead of calling the police and explaining what happened, instead of claiming self-defense or temporary insanity or any of the other legal defenses that might have been available to her, she decided to cover it up, and when that didn't work, she decided to frame her husband. At what point did she think this was going to end well for her? At what point did she think this plan wasn't going to implode spectacularly, taking everyone around her down with it? Because here's the thing about lies, especially big, complicated lies involving planted evidence and frame. Jobs, they require you to keep track of so many moving parts, so many different details, and all it takes is one person who is in the wrong place at the wrong time, hearing the wrong ringtone to bring the whole thing crashing down. Trina and Kai coming forward would be the ultimate act of courage and also the ultimate act of loyalty to Michael and to Jocelyn, and really to justice itself, even though I hate using that word because it sounds so dramatic. But what else do you call it when you're willing to potentially upend your own life to make sure the truth comes out? Trina has already been through so much with the whole sex tape situation and being drugged, and all of that trauma from when Esme was wreaking havoc on Port Charles, so the idea that she would willingly put herself in another difficult situation where she might face legal consequences or social backlash just because it's the right thing to do really speaks to who she is as a person. And Kai, even though we don't know him as well, seems like he wants to do the right thing too, even if he's maybe a bit more hesitant about it. Which, honestly, is a pretty normal human reaction when you're faced with a decision that could have serious repercussions for your future. The ripple effects of this are going to be enormous. Michael, finding out his wife tried to frame him for attempted murder, that's probably going to end their marriage. There's no coming back from that level of betrayal. You can't couples counsel your way out of your spouse trying to send you to prison. Jocelyn is going to be devastated because Michael is her brother and she loves him, but also Willow has been part of their family and she was the mother of her nephew, and now everything is just broken beyond repair. Carly is going to lose her mind when she finds out, because you know how Carly gets when someone threatens one of her children? She goes into full mama bear mode, and nothing is off limits, nothing is too extreme when it comes to protecting her kids. Sonny might actually be the voice of reason in all of this, which would be hilarious given his own checkered past with violence in the law, but he's been trying to stay on the straight and narrow lately, and he genuinely cares about Michael even when they're fighting, so seeing his son almost go to prison for something he didn't do would probably set off some very dangerous protective instincts. And Drew, poor Drew in all of this, because he got shot and then his shooter tried to frame someone else, and now when it all comes out, he's going to have to deal with the fact that the woman he had an affair with, the woman who blew up both of their families, was willing to kill him and then let someone else take the blame. That's gotta mess with your head, right? That's gotta make you question everything about that relationship and what it meant and whether any of it was real, or if Willow was always capable of this level of deception and he just didn't see it. Scout and Danny are going to have questions about why their dad got shot and why Aunt Willow did it, and how do you explain that to children? How do you tell them that adults sometimes make terrible decisions that hurt lots of people, including themselves? The whole custody situation becomes even more fraught now, because if Willow can't get custody of her kids because of this scheme, then what happens to them? Does Michael get sole custody? Does Nina somehow end up with more parenting time than before? Will there be some kind of supervised visitation arrangement where Willow has to see her children with a social worker present because the court has determined she's not fit to be alone with them? These are real consequences that go way beyond just the criminal aspects of what she did, and they're probably going to hurt her more than any prison sentence ever could, because the whole point of everything she did was supposedly to get her kids back, and now she might have lost them forever. I keep coming back to that ringtone detail because it's such a small thing, but it's going to be the thing that brings everything crashing down. In our digital age, our phones are basically tracking devices that we carry around voluntarily. They record where we go, who calls us, what time everything happened. And all of that data is stored somewhere in servers and databases that can be subpoenaed by law enforcement. So when Trina and Kai say they heard Willow's phone ringing with Wiley's specific ringtone at Drew's house at the time of the shooting there, will be records to prove it. Call logs that show Wiley or someone from his phone tried to reach Willow at exactly that time. Cell tower data that shows Willow's phone was in the vicinity of Drew's house, not wherever she claimed she was. It's all there, waiting to be uncovered, waiting to prove that she's been lying this whole time. What's Willow going to do when she realizes her plan is falling apart? Is she going to double down and try to discredit Trina and Kai somehow? Is she going to claim they're lying or mistaken, or that they have some ulterior motive for trying to protect Michael? That seems like a dangerous game to play, because Trina is well liked in Port Charles. She has a good reputation. She's not some troublemaker with a history of causing problems. She's a college student with strong family connections and a track record of being honest and reliable. Going after her credibility might backfire even worse than the original frame-up, because it would make Willow look desperate and unhinged, like someone who's willing to attack innocent people just to protect herself. Or maybe Willow will realize the jig is up and try to confess and throw herself on the mercy of the court, even though legally she can't be prosecuted anymore. She might try to use a confession as a way to mitigate the damage in family court, to show that she's taking responsibility and trying to make amends, even though making amends for attempted murder and framing your husband seems like a pretty tall order. The writers have really painted themselves into a corner with this storyline, or maybe they've created a brilliant soap opera scenario, depending on how you look at it, because there are so many different directions this could go, so many potential outcomes and consequences. Will Michael forgive Willow eventually after years of therapy and growth? Probably not, but stranger things have happened in Port Charles, people. Have forgiven much worse over the years. Will Willow end up alone and isolated with no family and no friends because everyone she knows has turned their backs on her? That seems more likely, at least in the short term. Will Drew press charges or sue her in civil court since he can't get justice through the criminal system? That would be interesting, because even though she can't face criminal prosecution, double jeopardy doesn't protect you from civil liability. You can still be sued for damages in a civil court, even if you've been acquitted or can't be retried in criminal court. The boldness of trying to frame Michael, specifically your own husband, the father of your children, the man who has stood by you through literal life and death situations, is just breathtaking in its audacity and its cruelty. Like, if you're gonna frame someone for your crime, why not frame a stranger? Why not frame some random person who Drew had a business dispute with, or an enemy from Sonny's organization? Someone who already has a criminal record and might be considered a likely suspect. Why go after the one person who should be able to trust you completely, who should never have to worry that you might betray him in the worst possible way? Unless Willow is so far gone at this point, so consumed by whatever is driving her, that she can't think straight anymore, can't see how destructive her actions are, not just to Michael, but to herself and to her children, who are going to grow up knowing that their mother did these terrible things. There's something almost Greek tragedy about it. The way Willow's desire to get her kids back is the exact thing that's going to ensure she never gets them back, because she was willing to cross lines that should never be crossed, to hurt people who loved her, to destroy the very family she claims she wants to protect. It's self-defeating and self-destructive, and watching it unfold is going to be both horrifying and absolutely riveting television, because we know it's going to end badly for her. We know that Trina and Kai are going to come forward. We know the truth is going to come out. But the question is, how much damage will be done before that happens, and who else will get hurt along the way? So buckle up, General Hospital fans, because this storyline is about to explode in ways that nobody except maybe the spoiler sites could have predicted, and when it does, the fallout is going to be massive and messy and probably extremely satisfying if you're someone who believes in justice and consequences and people actually having to face the results of their actions instead of skating by on luck or connections or the fact that they used to be sympathetic characters who viewers liked. Willow's downfall is coming, and it's going to be spectacular.